Dear diarrhea full of shit. Just play along with me, myself, and I. No one else. Yo, I'm so legit. I'm watching a video, well, listening to it mostly, from my future bestie Cool Breeze about Vegas and how it's not worth going there anymore. I have never taken a trip to Vegas. I've driven through there. I've picked up and delivered there, but I have never stayed in a motel or done anything tourist related in Vegas. Never have, never will. Um, and I'm only a few minutes in, probably like maybe 10 or something like that. And I always make it a habit to, if I'm, you know, in a situation where I can, read the comments, I read the top five. And then, maybe if there's a couple more like short ones, I'll read those. And then I just sort of scroll down a bit, and any that catch my eye, I'll read those. And one of them said, I'm never spending money here again until these sociopaths get their shit figured out. And I mentioned that because Cool Breeze had just mentioned that I guess they charge $24 for a bottled water. And they're straight up just stealing your money with like fees and shit that serve no purpose. Parking fees, that's whatever they are, just fees. That's just one of those dude, bro, dude things, dude, 100,000 air, entrepreneur, millionaire mindset, we'll just fuck these people over. You want to use our products or services? That's fine, but it'll cost you $24 for a bottle of water. You don't have to buy water. You can't bring your own water. You can just, not drink, water, alcohol, that'll cost you $50. You can't bring your own liquor. Obviously, there's all kinds of issues with that. But, this is the dude, bro, bro, dude technology. They're basically Bens and Bryans. They're another branch from the same tree, or, say a different lanch from the same, a different lanch, a different leaf from the same branch. They're scum. My future bestie Cool Breeze did a video a long time ago, probably a few years, talking about, subscription services in cars, how it used to be, your heater would just work. It was part of the car. It's kind of like a flushing toilet. But these $100,000 heirs, entrepreneurs, movers and a shaker, shakers and a movers, millionaire mindset, bruh, who, like I said, have Ben and Brian tendencies. Now remember, Ben and Brian are tech people. Ben and Brian are the people who hacked into Mrs. Jones' home security system, and they're beating off to her doing the dishes, while, drinking an energy drink, smoking weed, and also not only beating off to Mrs. Jones, but an anime chick with cat ears, tits literally 3 times the size of her body, a dick that goes up, over, and behind their back and up its own ass, and she may or may not have a tail. And it's kind of unisex looking in nature, so it's like, well, it's either kind of a boyish girl or a girlish boy. And these are the people who fix your fucking computer, or talk to you when you call computer service, for any sort of tech arrangement, phone, computer, Netflix, those are those people. And there's different levels, and there's the genuine scammers and stuff. And there's different levels of people, who use magic air or the internet to do bad things to, people. Trying to fuck them over, trying to wriggle their way in and get some information and get a toehold, but usually these lower level people, they still need you. It's still a scam, they still need to present a situation that looks legit and say, I have a solution for you, security alert, and like I said, they use scare tactics, a lot of stuff they search for older, more naive people, and this is just what they do. And like I said, like the movie The Beehive, there's organizations like that But then there's also just Ben, who, plays video games a little bit too much. And, God mode is like a thing in his life. Most of us, we just go through life, just working hard, going through life and facing reality. But people, who play video games, and everybody has their escapism, I've got the alcoholism, but that's not like, God mode in a video game. But tech people, the concept of God mode is appealing to them. So that's why Ben is jacking off, to Mrs. Jones, because he hacked into his security system. He's not going to do anything with that information. He doesn't have the means to harvest information and use it, develop some sort of scam, or sell it to bona fide scammers. He's just Ben. He's just a bitch, a pussy, a coward, a weasel, destroyer of, worlds, civilizations, everything good, holy, and noble. There are people out there who be ye cursed. Far left-leaning liberals and Democrats and all that shit. These people destroy. They devour. They scorch the earth. They are bad, bad people. And it's all based on feelings, emotions, perceived injustices, and it's horseshit. But these people exist. And it's just like, Mr. Pellet said, it's like, you better hope you don't get in a car crash, wearing a shirt with the American flag on it, because the nurse might think America sucks and might accidentally, inject too much, anesthesia in you or whatever, and murder you. Or the eyes of God and the devil, he or she will murder you. And they'll justify it in their mind, oh, you probably support ICE or whatever, you're one of these MAGA boys, so it's like they will do the mental gymnastics necessary to justify the fact that they just murdered you under the eyes of God and the devil, because they don't like you. They don't like the style of clothes that you chose to wear. That is who you're dealing with. And they come up with these phrases like get woke. Might want to stop talking. Better be on the right side of history. Might want to stop talking, There is a clear line, and a lot of it is evil. Now, remember, they're cowards, but evil is evil. So, anyway, after that quick little digress, one comment had said that, that their parking system and highway system, I guess, tracks your license plate and then, sends you texts. Because like I said, your information is out there, and they basically, harass you, if you don't use their app. And like I said, that I prefer to keep apps off my phone. I keep things to the minimum, because know what you don't know. And as far as I'm concerned, an app is another piece of magic error technology that is on my phone screen that gets information sent to it, and it sends and retrieves information through the air, and I figure it's up for grabs. That's one of those things that might, a company like in the movie The Beehive might be interested in. Ben isn't interested in that. He's just interested in God mode and the fact that, I hacked Mrs. Jones' security system. That's Ben. But then there's his buddy Brian, who's like, yeah, you know what, I'm a little bit more high tech. I chew bubble gum, and I'm like, yeah, I got you, bro. But maybe he's got like the car dealership mentality. Yeah, I work when I want. I make $50,000 a month. I think the most I ever made was $75,000 in 23 days. The least I ever made was $9,000. I pick my hours, the days that I want to work, and if I want to take a vacation, I take it. I don't even have to ask my boss. He's on board as long as we meet, per certain, percentage. Yeah, the bank's mad. They're thinking about leaving, but we've been haggling back and forth, for the last, hour and a half. So I'd hate to lose you, over, $250, leather versus cloth seat package. So, let's work something out. I'm a mover and a shaker. I chew bubble gum. I like tech. I'm a version of Ben and Brian. I'm just a little bit more higher performing in the actual real world. I'm not uselessly hacking into people's, systems because the idea of God mode makes my little pecker hard. I'm actually, kind of a low-level scammer type dude, right? So anyway, which by the way, if you want to, outsmart, for lack of a better word, or out haggle a car dealer, go on the last Friday of the month, like 2 hours before they close. That way, they just want to get that extra little hit. And that'll save you some fucking bullshit. You show up on, the second Tuesday of the month, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you are in for a fucking fight. Because you are dealing with a 100,000-air entrepreneur, billionaire mindset, mover and a shaker, shaker and a mover. I chew bubble gum. I got you, bro. I got you, bro. You're dealing with that low-life piece of shit. So anyway, I kind of forgot what I was talking about, but yeah, the app. And then what else did he say? Being double charged. That's, and he had just said that. That's another reason why I wanted to mention this. You have to keep track of your finances, and who wouldn't do that anyway, right? But my point is the concept that they're just like, that's a tactic for them. Okay, again, the Bens and Brians of the world, the movers and the shakers, who are maybe a different leaf but on the same branch. Okay, scum, lowlife, conniving, weasels, cowards. Like literally the scum of the earth, not just you suck, I don't like you, you're the scum of the earth. No, as I said, I'm not like a religious Bible thumper, but under the eyes of God and the devil, because they're both always watching, the literal worst of the worst when it comes to morals and ethics of the human species. Oh, we'll just double charge them. If they get caught, then we won't double charge them. And then 6 months from now, we'll double charge them again. Hey, fuck it, man. Hey, you want your heater to work? Hey, we'll just start charging them, Larry. That's not a name of a mover and a shabaker. A mover and a shabaker maker, waker, baker, wang, bang, whiz, bam, pop. 100,000-air mindset, or 100,000-air billionaire mindset. Not there yet. I do know Andrew Tate. Does Andrew Tate know you would be the next question. Oh yeah, I said, hey Andrew, I want to suck your dick. And he looked directly, he saluted me, and just whatever. So, he gave me a salute and then pointed right to me. So, he knew, real recognized real, man. That guy, but, yeah, you have to watch that shit. Because I was charged the 1st January of 2026. It was a Monday for my ADT system. It's set up automatic payment on a particular credit card. And now it's set up for another payment. I forget when it is. But, so I need to call them. And just because if it even offers a number, it used to be Promptville and everything was like a dead end. Now it's AIville, which is just prompt bill only with more personality. So instead of press 1 for this, press 2 for that, now it's okay, let's see if maybe I can help you. What is your thing with the stuff and the whatnot? So it's the same fucking shit. It's just made to have more, personality, quote unquote, but it's the same dead end worthless shit. So you have to fight that battle. And you have to go to the website and find a number there potentially, and maybe you got to call, their corporate headquarters, and it's Well, my future bestie Cool Breeze had mentioned that with like a credit card, something. He had got the numbers backwards. So in theory, you just need to, cancel out that credit card account and, open up a new one with a different number and just start clean, and you'll have to, any, services, that you are on automatic billing, you're going to have to update that information. And anything that's already on that credit card that you owe will just be rolled over, so, or something like that. I was like, you have to actually take the time to update, like with Netflix or, your internet service or whatever, if you change a credit card, it was lost, stolen, whatever. It's like, okay, stop payments, but then now you have to get rid of that number. So anyway, but and of course, that wasn't an option, and I believe they do that on purpose. They want to buy time. They want you to, hope if you just ignore it, they could charge fees or whatever. I guess he did actually get charged a fee, and just weak people and corrupt people. The weasels and the cowards, hey, used to be cars just had air conditioning. Oh, they still have air conditioning. It's just on a computer controlled basis now, and we'll just charge you a monthly subscription. Now, I don't know if they actually literally do that. I think he was talking about like heated seats, and I don't give a fuck about heated seats, because the thing is, they run all these nodes and modules, and big brains talking to medium brains, talking to a bigger brain, talking to the master brain. It's like they run through other systems. So if your windshield washer pump goes out, it also takes out your cruise control. And it's just stupid people with high IQs, making things overly complex. And it's, you get teams of people. So it's like, well, if there's 2 or 3 people responsible for something, it's like they can come to a conclusion. But if you've got, a team of 10 people, it's like kind of whatever the majority rule is, so it's a little bit harder to offer, quality products and services. But anyway, I guess this is just sort of a quick little rant, weak people make, hard and stupid times, just like that folder. So I'll go ahead and drop this in that folder. I'll drop it in the Amen Drop the Mic 2, because the Amen Drop the Mic, the first one's getting pretty full, and I do have, a high traffic flow. So I'm just trying to put my dent in the universe, right? I'll also put it in the weak people make hard/stupid times. It's like, this is fucking ridiculous, It's like life is an episode of South Park. Like one time I went to a McDonald's a long time ago, and it was 64 ounces, which is huge. I went into McDonald's and I said, can I fill this with ice and then fill it with pop? And she said, no, you have to buy, a large, which was 32 ounces. So I said, can I just pay, for 2 larges, but I want to put it in this glass. And that was the argument, I don't know. So what I did, and it was in a shit part of town, and of course the manager, was, let's just say they were a fucking moron, making their family proud. So I literally took the 2 32-ounce glasses, filled them, like 3/4 with ice, filled them with pop, and then dumped them into my plastic container. And I said, see, it's 64 ounces. And there was this guy, and I remember I did an audio presentation about it way back in the day. I'm sure Fucko remembers, because, and I was like, this is ridiculous. And I remember saying that. It's like life is becoming an episode of The Simpsons or South Park. And South Park is basically The Simpsons, just more crass. And it's like, this is fucking ridiculous. And this is a fucking manager, who said that. And, it's like you're trying to rationalize it, like, Like it's not really 64 ounces, it's 164. I'm trying to fuck you out of money. But they didn't say that. So I suspect that they didn't say that because they didn't know. They didn't make that argument because it didn't enter their brain. So as where if it were me, I'd be like, hey, look, I know it's stupid, but I'm not saying you're lying. I'm sure it is 64 ounces, but, and it's like, I wouldn't do that. You know what I mean? Like, well, I need to see it, So, because I just right there in front of them, it's like, okay, here's the one, it's full. Here's the other one, it's full. Dump it in the container. Dump it in the container. As you can see, it's full. I'm not lying. Threw the cups away. Have a nice life, you low caliber piece of shit. So, anyway. So it's like, I guess in that case, that's the argument, That would be what you would say. It's like, I have to charge you for the cups or whatever, okay, fine. But, I'd be like, okay, fine, just go fill it, I'll take your word for it, Just eyeball it, it's like, yeah, that looks like, yeah, okay, here's 32 ounce glasses, cups. Yeah, I'd say that's probably 64 ounces. Maybe it even said it on there somewhere, 64 ounces, Just people are such low-life pieces of shit, man. So, she was a ghetto rat. Let's just put it that way. So, like, you don't know your fucking ass from the hole in the ground, But